Welcome back to another episode of the Last Shot NBA show hosted by me. I am Nick Metallinos, and please, before we get started, make sure you like this video, subscribe to the channel and hit that notification bell to make sure you stay up to date with all our content. We'll be on 3 times a week, Mondays, Wednesdays and Fridays at 10 a.m. Whew, Man, do I love this league. We are, 3 days into the NBA season, and so much has been happening. So much is going to continue to happen, and we have a very special guest to talk with today, and that is Mr. Kane Pitman. He is the host of Locked On Bucks podcast. He contributes to NBA Australia and ESPN Australia. He does a little bit of everything. Kane, how are you this morning?
I'm doing pretty well. I'm feeling a little bit tired, I think, from the first 11 game slate of the season. I was watching games, and I still found myself last night having to go through the box scores and seeing stuff that I missed. It was back to the full craziness.
Well, I mean, out of those 11 games, what have you seen so far that, really strikes you?
I mean, there's a bunch of young teams that are interesting. I mean, we saw yesterday Charlotte, obviously, again. They're one of I would say one of the favorite league pass teams. LaMelo Ball was awesome, but I think it's the contenders. Obviously, a great opening night. We saw Milwaukee and Brooklyn. Everyone's fascinated by the Lakers. We get to see the Warriors play again tonight as we're recording this. So I think as much as we're entertained by the younger players that are coming in, it's a great rookie class. We're all looking at the top.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, for me, it's definitely the top 3, 4, 5 teams. They're the real contenders. Everybody else is just pretty much here for our entertainment, I guess, throughout the season. Look, it's going to be a long season. We're going to have you on a few times throughout the season, I'm pretty sure, and we're going to talk about various teams. But today I want to focus on the Australians in the NBA. There should be 8 of them, but there's only going to be 6. So, let's talk a little bit about the Australians. The first one I want to talk about, we'll just touch on it briefly because BK and I spoke about this the other day, and that's Ben Simmons. And it seems like it's going to be an ongoing saga. So I don't want to talk about it too much and too often. But, this morning we saw the reports that apparently he pulled out a shoot around with a sore back. Daryl Morey's gone on to Philadelphia radio and said, look, we're under no pressure to trade Ben Simmons. This thing could go on for a while. And he kind of, I don't know if it was a joke or if it was a half joke. He said that, this could go on for 4 years, which is what Ben's got left on his contract. But, just what are your thoughts looking at the Ben Simmons situation right now?
Well, this is more of the traditional route when you see a player report to a team but not necessarily play. All of a sudden they have this lingering injury, and maybe in this situation Ben's like, I got a sore back. The medical staff's like, no you don't, and he's like, yes I do, my back's sore, I can't play, I can't practice. So we'll see how this plays out. I mean, I'm not surprised that he came back to the Sixers now that he's back with the team. Doesn't want to practice, doesn't want to play. So I just think it's the steps that they're going to have to eventually get to, where I do think he's going to have to play. Daryl Morey's not wrong. It's not going to go on for 4 years, but there's no way if you're the Sixers, you're trading him now with the way he looks in the public, with the way everyone is viewing this situation. They're going to get no value back. So it's a mess. It's an absolute mess, but I'm not exactly surprised that he's all of a sudden picked up a bit of a back injury.
Yeah, I know, right? And I was kind of joking earlier. I was like, well, today it's his back, and tomorrow it's my neck, and my neck and my back. And before you know it, he's going to have about 32 different afflictions within the next, week and a half. But we talked about, I mean, you just spoke about this as well, that, the trade value that he's got at the moment, which is at an all-time low. And, I just don't know, because the Sixers need to play him to get his trade value up. And obviously Ben wants to be out of there as well, clearly. And I feel like from his perspective, he needs to be looking at playing too, to also bring his trade value up. Like if you come there, play your game, contribute the way that you have been contributing, at least bring your value up. And then maybe you can get one of those teams that you want to go to, whether it's in LA or New York or wherever it may be. Maybe you can get them to sort of look at you and say, you know what, he's actually, worth trading for at the moment.
Yeah, he's been in the league for 4 seasons, 3 times All-NBA defense. So this guy's a really good player. It clearly didn't end well in the postseason, but if he comes back in the regular season, he's able to contribute to the levels he normally does during the regular season. There's going to be teams that talk themselves into trading for Ben Simmons. That's a fact. It's opening night. Everyone's optimistic. Give them another month. Give them 6 weeks, where maybe the season's not going the way they think it's going to go. they'll be calling for a trade. But he has to be playing. He can't be having these stories coming out where he's refusing to defend in practice or now he's missing this game with injury. He's got to play, I think, for that trade value to bump up.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I saw him in that practice footage. He was defending like I do. So he's definitely got to he's got to start making an effort. Look, we're going to go from one All-Star to one, hopefully maybe future All-Star for Australia and for the OKC Thunder. Josh Giddey. Now, they played the Utah Jazz yesterday. Did you watch this game, Kane?
Yeah, I did. Yeah.
What did you think of Josh?
I thought, look, first of all, it was the first taste for the Thunder of what's going to be a very long regular season. I mean, they're so young, and they were coming up against obviously Utah, number one seed in the league, or number one best record in the league last regular season. And yeah, they weren't able to physically match it with them. But I will say, as far as Josh Giddey goes, first of all, he's an excellent rebounder as a guard. We know that. But the other thing that I find the most interesting and perhaps the most interesting storyline to watch going forward, I thought his best stretch came early in the second quarter when Shai Gilgeous-Alexander was on the bench. He spoke about it during training camp, the fact that he's learning to play off the ball, learning to play with SGA. It's going to be a work in progress because I don't think that necessarily suits him. As soon as he was on the ball as the primary ball handler, he's running pick and roll, finding guys going to the basket. So that's going to be the interesting thing for me, just to see how he fits in with Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, because he's not exactly a willing shooter. I know there's been a lot of talk about it, but if he's playing that off-ball role, he's going to have to be willing to catch and shoot, knock down that three. So we'll see how that pans out. Yeah,
I mean, obviously, I agree with that as well. I was watching him yesterday. He's the second youngest player, I believe, in the league. And I know this has been spoken about before, but he doesn't play like it. Look, he's going to make mistakes. It's obviously his first year in the league. He is 19 years old. At some point, he might even hit that rookie wall that everybody, talks about. But I was watching him yesterday, and he was very composed in his time on the court. There was glimpses there where that once it all clicks in for him, it's definitely going to click in. And I was looking at it, and I was asking myself, what's his ceiling? Like, do you see him actually being an all-star within the NBA, or is he just going to be more of a very, very good, I don't want to use the term role player, but a very good contributor on a team?
Yeah, it depends, because right now when you look at him, and he's literally played one game, but right now when you look at him as a player, even in his time in the NBL with Adelaide, he was really a facilitator first and a scorer second. There's just not that many guys that become all-stars playing that way. Now, funnily enough, Ben Simmons might be one of those guys that was able to do that, but he was also elite on the defensive end. So I will see how the scoring progresses. Is he a guy that can create his own shot off the dribble? Is he going to be is he going to have that jump shot in his repertoire off the dribble where he can break down the guy? Because that's the game right now. So I think the scoring will determine that. But I would agree with your assessment that he looks very comfortable out there with the ball in hand, dribbling into traffic and finding the open man, which does feel pretty rare.
Well, we'll see how that plays out. Like you said, it's a long season. He might end up hitting a rookie wall at some point, but once he figures it all out, I think he's going to be okay. And, speaking of figuring it all out, one of the guys that was on the opposite sides of the floor yesterday in that game, Joey Ingles, 8th season in the league now. He's obviously found his niche. He is what I call the glue guy for the Utah Jazz. Played a very Joe Ingles-like game yesterday, 14 points, 3 and 3. He did what he does, hit down some open shots, some three-pointers as well. What do you see from Joey in year 8 for him?
Well, it's funny because I know that Joe Ingles isn't necessarily the comparison that a lot of people make when they're talking about Josh Giddey, but when you look at a guy with that size, which Giddey obviously has ridiculous size for a guard, and then you look at the way Joe Ingles can handle the ball and run the pick and roll, and there was, I think, 3 possessions in a row where he dribbled into the paint, around the screen, Rudy Gobert rolled to the basket, and it was an either easy bucket or he went to the free throw line. So there's just so much chemistry with Utah, and Joe Ingles never really stands out. And then you looked at the box score at the end of the night. He had 14 points, 3 rebounds, 3 assists, knocked down 4 threes. You just know what you're going to get from Joe. I would suspect, last year he was second in 6 man of the year. I would suspect he'll be around the mark again. Obviously, with Jordan Clarkson there, it makes it difficult to win it. But he's so consistent. This Utah team obviously are going to be really, really good in the regular season. They're just hoping to figure it out in the postseason and obviously get to the conference finals and maybe beyond.
Yeah, well, that was actually my next question to you. The playoffs, that's been my biggest gripe with the Utah Jazz. I feel like they've been a great regular season team over the last, 4 or 5 seasons, but they've had, I think, 2 first-round exits, or 3 in the second round, something like that. So they've never made the conference finals. I'm not convinced on the Lakers this season. I don't think that they're going to roll their way through the Western Conference. But I'm not entirely sure if Utah's the team that's going to be able to beat them. What's your thoughts on that?
Well, I think if I'm Utah, I'm looking at Milwaukee last year and seeing what they did during the regular season and how they set themselves up to have success in the postseason, experimented, tried different things. Because much like Milwaukee the year before, and really the 2 years before that, the Bucks were dominant in the regular season, but they didn't really prepare themselves for the postseason. They didn't try anything. It was almost like they didn't have a plan B. So I think for Utah, that has to be the key this regular season. And Joe Ingles spoke about it at Media Day. He said, listen, winning in the regular season is fun, but you don't get anything for it. We want to win in the postseason. He spoke about perhaps they need to rest guys a little bit more. Maybe it's not winning 60 games or 58-game pace of what they were on last year. It's about winning in the playoffs. And the other thing is Donovan Mitchell was injured last year in the postseason. He wasn't healthy. So that's your best player. If you get him healthy, maybe it changes things a little bit. But I do think sometimes these teams just need a couple of years of dominating the regular season, and that's really fun, and you're winning lots of games, and there's a big buzz about you. But then you have the disappointment in the postseason, and maybe you just recalibrate a little bit of what the ultimate goal really is, which I think for Utah, it has to be winning a championship this year. They've been up there for long enough. And from our perspective, Joe Ingles is 34 now.
That's right.
We would love to see him win a title. I think he's going to have a great shot to do it here in Utah, but it's not going to, that window isn't going to last forever.
No, that's right. I also think it's a case of, people saying that, and I guess I'm one of them, that it can't be done until it's done, so, excuse me, until they kind of prove to us that they can do it. I'm still going to be a little bit skeptical, but we'll wait and see how that one plays out. But, speaking of championship contenders, obviously the Brooklyn Nets will be one of the favorites to come out of the East. The Brooklyn Nets also have Patty Mills, who is my prediction for the 6th man of the year this season. That opening game, he definitely played like it. 21 points, shooting the lights out from 3-point range. You mentioned Joe Ingles would be up there and Jordan Clarkson for 6th man of the year, but I've got my money on Patty Mills. And what do you think about Patty's performance?
He was awesome. And it was exactly why everyone thinks that he's such a perfect fit playing in that Brooklyn roster. And, of course, most people are going to be a pretty good fit. If you can shoot the ball and you're playing next to Durant and Harden, you're going to be just fine. But it's tough to stop, because what do you do when those two guys are on the floor and then you have Patty zipping around screens, zipping around the perimeter? We know he can shoot on the move. So, yeah, it was awesome. Again, obviously, he's not going to shoot 7 for 7 every single night, but the types of shots he was getting, I think, should give you a good indication of what he's going to do on that team. And we'll see. I mean, I expect Kyrie Irving will be back at some point, but that only makes his job even easier. He's going to be out there potentially with those 3 guys at one time. He can run the second unit as well and obviously shoot the ball really well. So I like the pick. It would be a fun one for us, because I think ultimately we've always looked at Patty and said, okay, well, can he go to the next level in the NBA? Will he get more opportunities? Will he take more shots? He's now in an environment where Steve Nash and the Nets are just going to say, just keep shooting it. We'll just keep shooting the ball. Don't worry about passing it. We'll set you up. You stand on the perimeter, knock down those threes. So it was a fun start.
And I know, obviously, you covered the NBA as well, and I'm sure you've asked Greg Popovich this. I know I have. I always asked him about Patty's role within the Spurs, and he always used to say, we want him to play for us like he plays for the Australian national team. And I just feel like coming into this Brooklyn situation, like you said, he's going to be able to play more like Boomer's Patty than ever before, which is going to free him up a lot more. And I definitely, like I said, I'm going to stick with that pick for him for 6th man of the year. Let's talk about another Aussie that's new to the league, Jock Landale. You've covered him within the NBL as well. Played only 4 minutes yesterday, 1-1-1. They won in a big win for the Spurs. How do you see Jock fitting in with San Antonio?
Well, I think he's got the skill set that most big men or modern day big men have. He's got good hands. He can pass the ball. Obviously, he can shoot the 3. It's going to be difficult for him, particularly at the start of the year, though, because they've got Jakob Poeltl, who's starting, Drew Eubanks coming off the bench, Thad Young is there as well. So they actually do have a number of big men. But I think he's the type of guy that Popovich will like. I mean, clearly, he liked what he saw at the Olympics, or when the Boomers played Team USA. So we'll see if he gets his opportunities. I think at the start of the year, it's going to be a little bit difficult for him to really crack that rotation if there isn't an injury or something like that. I only got the last couple of minutes there last night. Knocked down a free throw, though, so he's got an NBA point. But yeah, it might just be a matter of being a little bit patient on that Spurs team.
How much do you think that Olympic experience is going to help him, with sort of adjusting to the NBA?
Well, I always said, the big question with Jock, he's got the offensive skill. Defensively, can he keep up with some of those guys? So, when you go into the Olympics playing in that Team USA game, having to switch on to Kevin Durant and then you've got him on the perimeter, those types of experience have to be valuable. And also just spending the time with Patty, Joe, all the guys that have been on the roster for a long time and been in the league for a long time. So I think we saw him in the World Cup in 2019. He was a huge contributor. I thought he was a huge contributor in Tokyo this year as well. So, look, I think even though he's 25, 26 now, I still think that there's massive growth for him in this league and now that he's in the system.
Yeah, I agree with you. Look, lastly, before we let you get off and start your day, because I know you've got a very busy day ahead, Josh Green with the Dallas Mavericks, who are in action today. What do you see as his development in his second season?
Yeah, it's really tough with Josh because, again, this is what happens when you get drafted to a contender. Sometimes those opportunities are few and far between. And for Josh, really his call mark is going to be his athleticism and what he can do defensively. But there's not a lot of room in the NBA these days for guys that are predominantly defensive players and can't really knock down a three with consistency or produce a lot on the offensive end. And unfortunately, he just hasn't had a lot of chance to do that, or a lot of chances to do that, I should say. So we'll see this year with the reintroduction of the G League, which wasn't there last year. They had a short bubble down in Orlando, so maybe he actually gets some chances to play. Because honestly, being a rookie in the league last year, if you weren't in the rotation, it was really tough to get those in-game reps against opposition that you don't know from practice.
So what do you think he has to do to earn those regular minutes?
Yeah, offensively, he has to work on the jump shot. He has to be more consistent with the three ball, because defensively and athletically he can do it. But we see this right across the league. When you're playing on a contender, they're not just going to give away developmental minutes. And it's not to say that someone like LaMelo Ball last year or Josh Giddey this year or even RJ Hampton down in Orlando don't deserve the minutes. But RJ Hampton is a good example of when he was in Denver, he couldn't play. He couldn't get on the floor because positionally they were deeper. They were looking to contend. They didn't have the developmental minutes. Then he went to Orlando and now he plays every single night. So it's kind of luck of the draw in the draft. And unfortunately for Josh, he might just have to be a little bit patient. New coach, maybe Jason Kidd likes him. We'll see. We'll
see how that pans out. Look, like we said, 6 Australians in the NBA. There should be 8. Aaron Baines out for the season, obviously with that neck, issue that he sustained during the Olympics. Dante Exum waived by the Houston Rockets. Do you think he gets another chance elsewhere?
I was disappointed because I thought he was just awesome in the Olympics. Honestly, along with, Josh Green didn't really play, but along with Matisse Thybulle, really, I thought that Dante was the one guy that you looked at when they played a team like Team USA and said, okay, yeah, that guy looks like he has NBA athleticism. So hopefully he gets a chance. I would like to see him stick in the US rather than come back here, although if I'm selfish, it would be fun to watch him play in the NBL.
Yeah, going up against Dellavedova. Love to see that. Oh. Look, Kane, we're going to let you go, but before we go, we're going to take a look at some of the games this weekend, some of the highlights. Obviously, the Hawks are playing at the Mavericks today. We wonder if Josh Green will get any court time. Who do you like in that game?
In the Dallas-Atlanta game, well, what I like is the matchup with Trae Young and Luka Doncic, but I think Dallas are a better team. Atlanta obviously had the massive season last year. We'll see how that holds up. They're still a pretty young team. So I would take Dallas even on the road.
And we've got the Miami Heat playing against your beloved Milwaukee Bucks. Do I even have to ask you for a prediction for this game?
Yeah, give me Miami. I'll shock you. Is that?
I am actually shocked. I am very shocked. But listen, are you going with Milwaukee for the championship at least?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, they look awesome. And honestly, one of the biggest reasons why I like them is because they're so consistent with there's no controversy. They're the one contender where there's no controversy at all. So I just think they're super consistent. And Giannis, I saw you on the show the other day speak about Giannis. I mean, he looks absolutely ridiculous. Yeah,
listen, people are going to get sick of me talking about Giannis on this show. I already had a mate of mine message me and he said, listen, the Greek freak talk was a little bit too much. So I said, mate, buckle in because there's going to be more of it this year. 76ers at Nets tomorrow. I thought this game was going to be quite interesting because obviously I thought maybe Ben Simmons, might play. Joel Embiid looked absolutely awesome yesterday. Who do you like in this game?
The Nets. Yeah, I like the Nets. I mean, I think they look like a team on opening night that was still just trying to figure out a bunch of different things. They have got some new faces in the rotation. So I still like the Nets. They're going to be awesome this year. I didn't read too much into opening night at all. They didn't get a lot from their role players. They'll figure it out. I still like the Nets, and Philadelphia without Ben Simmons obviously is a massive loss.
And look, last game, the Lakers are playing the Suns on Sunday. That should be interesting. I think the Lakers bounce back. What do you think?
Yeah, well, the Suns had a first-up loss to Denver yesterday as well. Look, I'm kind of in the same boat with you. I don't know what to expect from the Lakers. I don't think it's a great fit. I don't have any faith in their role players that are all 35+. So I'm not all that excited about the Lakers this year. So give me Phoenix.
All right, Phoenix. I'm going to go with the Lakers on that one there. I think they bounce back. Look, Kane, you're a busy man. I know you got a lot to do today, so we'll let you go. Thank you very much for joining us here on the Last Shot Show. Hopefully it won't be the last time. We'll get you on throughout the season and just double back and check on your picks and all that sort of stuff. So thank you very much for your time, mate, and we'll see you next time.
Anytime, man. It's good to catch up.
Cheers. And thank you very much to Kane Pitman again for joining us. You can catch Kane on the Locked On Bucks podcast. Obviously, he's written stuff. He's at ESPN Australia and NBA Australia. And we're going to take a look at the odds now for some of these games. First up, we've got the Dallas Mavericks and the Atlanta Hawks. Atlanta, $1.81 favorites. The line is at 2, and the total is at 224.5. And the Milwaukee Bucks facing the Miami Heat. Miami, surprisingly, favorites at $1.71. The line is at 2.5, and the total is at 223.5. And that has been another episode of the Last Shot NBA show. Now, we're going to be going live as of next week. So from 9 a.m. Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. In the meantime, please, if you're watching this on YouTube, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, and also hit that notification bell to make sure you stay up to date with all our content once it gets posted. I've been your host, Nick Metallinos, and we'll see you next week.